this is what they gave me. This isn't the original, because the original I gave to someone else.
De regreso a Inglaterra, pude escuchar con más tranquilidad aquel disco que se había llevado con él y que casi había olvidado.
And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? Well, I decided in the end that the best thing to do was to give it to someone who was in the music business in England, and this guy was called Malcolm McLaren. I'd known Malcolm for about 3 years before that. I met him in 1972 in Kensington somewhere, probably in Kensington Market, where he used to go quite often. And I gave him this record saying, Malcolm, you might find this interesting, but for me, it's just a load of noise.
Malcolm McLaren fue el manager de Sex Pistols, la banda musical británica que la historiografía oficial considera como la pionera del género punk. 2 años después de que Richard le entregara el primer single de Vomito Adeco, Dios salve a Cap, su banda Sex Pistols publicó God Save the Queen, 2 temas que Richard Smith considera sospechosamente parecidos.
So I phoned up Malcolm, because I'd see him occasionally, and I'd say, Malcolm, congratulations on the success of God Save the Queen, which has caused a huge scandal and which has been banned by the BBC, which gave it even more fame. I phoned up Malcolm and asked him, I said, but it sounds a lot like that record I gave you. And he said, well, Richard, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the fact is that the record you gave me got no copyright, it wasn't registered, so we used it in order to create what I regard as a new sound. And that's what he said to me. I said, but Malcolm, don't you think that's a bit unfair? And he said, look, Richard, here in England, nobody knows where Venezuela is. It's somewhere in Latin America. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to find out. There's no copyright. What's the problem? And I said, well, you know, it's a question of fairness, Malcolm, but, you know, what could I do? I couldn't prove anything because I didn't have the record. Malcolm had the record. So I couldn't prove this at all.
Desanimado por lo que consideraba una injusticia, Richard acudió a una de las revistas musicales más prestigiosas de aquellos años para denunciar lo que a su parecer era un plagio, pero sin pruebas. La respuesta que obtuvo no fue la que esperaba.
People at the New Musical Express thought that I was some sort of crazy who just happened to come back with a story in order to discredit Malcolm McLaren for some reason, and that was far from the truth. All I wanted to do was to show that they should have credited this Venezuelan band, Vomito Adeco, for what they'd actually done.
Malcolm McLaren y los miembros de la banda simplemente se burlaron de las acusaciones de Richard Smith, y la prensa inglesa se alineó con los Sex Pistols sin titubear.
Somehow or other, through people at New Musical Express, word got over to Johnny Rotten that I'd phoned, and he said, what do you mean, Zarasa? It doesn't sound like a town to me. It sounds like a disease. And in English, Zarasa could be a disease, you know. That was typical of Johnny Rotten, wasn't it? You know, he had a really bad attitude, Johnny. And he had to have a bad attitude to maintain his public image. And, you know, Johnny said things in the media like, Venezuela, I don't even know where it is. What is it? A country? And this sort of bad attitude in order to justify their own position. Because it was obvious for me that if Johnny Rotten wrote God Save the Queen, he must have heard God Save Cap. It's obvious, it's too much of a coincidence.
¿Plagio o coincidencia? Tal vez nunca lo sepamos con certeza. Quizá